Hello folks, this is Craig Lane with Health Alchemy YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about some herbal tidbits again, and this is Self-Heal, Prunella vulgaris, one of my all-time favorite plants. You just check it out here. It's a ground cover, so it's one of nature's band-aids, I like to say. So we'll talk about function first. So this plant is a ground cover, and it grows sort of like a mint, and it does have a square stem. I don't know if it's in the mint family. I'll have to check that out. If anybody's that much of a question, we'll have to check it out. But you notice the purple flowers, so that one of my teachers says purple and blue flowers, these plants could have a potentiality for sepsis and blood poisoning. And yeah, this plant definitely has a lot of in the Chinese literature, the Han Dynasty used this plant for disturbed liver energy. So there's your kind of correlation there with, disturbed liver energy is going to give you definitely some upset blood. It carries heavy metal waste out of the body. It's one of my things with it. It's often called wound-wort, all-heal, or dragon head. You can see that those heads again. And you can notice like these seed heads here. These seed heads here, really rapid seed divider, and then it also will tend to come back in the same location that it grew. So this plant loves to cover the earth, and then it will also, see how it spreads out. I put this one in a basket with a lining and extra amounts of soil. I have another one, interestingly enough. We'll look at it over here. Notice this one's not doing quite as well. See how it down there in the soil level, the soil's not as deep, and it didn't regenerate on the bottom layer after it flowered. See, there's all the dead flower heads here. And it did a lot of so it got pretty stressed, knowing it didn't have the same amount of root space to go to. But this one, however, then I have one in my garden bed that's got about 2 feet of soil in that, and it's also dead. So it's really interesting. It's already died back for the winter. This is one of those plants that's kind of a semi-perennial annual. It will come back in the same location. So down under here, you can see it'll die back, and then it'll come back later from the rootstock, apparently. This plant has an astringent, slightly bitter, and salty energy. So it's kind of cold, and it's kind of laxative. Interesting vitamin. It has a lot of vitamin B1, thiamine, C, and K, they say. Antibacterial is what it says. I haven't borne that out in my practice, but you could try it as such. They say it lowers fever, it reduces blood pressure, and dilates blood vessels, so there's an action right there, right? Reducing fever is cooling, and that's what we said, it's cold energy, being astringent and slightly bitter. It stimulates the liver and the gallbladder, promotes healing. It's a diuretic, so you ladies out there with some water retention, men too, might consider it for that. Blood purifier, reduces swollen lymph glands, so it's a topical for hemorrhoids, so the juice or the mashed up plant. One study in my Herbalpedia says it can help with HIV-1 replication, so it could help against HIV. Its astringency could help with excess menstrual periods and hemorrhage. It could be anti-mutagenic, so it could be anti-cancer. It can lower a high thyroid production via rosmarinic acid. I have not borne that out in my practice, so I haven't seen that, but that's what some studies were saying. In Chinese medicine, they say it can help with jaundice. Those who are sensitive to light, can help with headaches and gout and lymphatic swellings, for high blood pressure, dizziness, and sore, swollen eyeballs. So the simple of this plant, if you think of it as an action, it's going to astringe, so it's going to reduce bleeding, it's going to reduce heavy sweating, it's potentially going to reduce loose bowels and hemorrhage. Being slightly bitter and salty, it's going to have a downward action, so it's going to be somewhat laxative, and there's your cold property, reducing blood pressure potentially, and reducing fever. Stimulating the liver gallbladder would help chime with the jaundice factor. And then the diuretic kind of ties in with the astringency. It's like squeezing a sponge, right? You squeeze a sponge and the water comes out. But this is a wound-wort. It's one of a famous wound-wort. So I always grow it along with yarrow and calendula and plantain And speaking of which, see, there's the yarrow, which we'll be talking about in another video, kind of the end of the season yarrow. And then here it is. So I have this plant growing around me for topical problems, you know, like a wound, or if a client has hemorrhoids, we might take the juice out. But this is one of those plants that's got a lot of good functions, and on the earth it's one of the band-aids. And unlike shiso I talked about earlier, is more of an above ground plant, growing at hot, dry places. This plant will not do well in a hot, dry location. I've seen it on lawns, and it won't grow very high out of the lawn, so you'll often see it hidden within lawns, especially in parks. You might see it in public places too, but it won't show like this. See, it's sticking up about 8 inches. It'll be more at ground level. So this is Craig Lane with another herbal tidbits. This is self-heal, or Prunella vulgaris. Self-heal, Prunella vulgaris. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy our videos here on Health Alchemy YouTube channel.